Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be joined with Nicholas Pannella from our YouTube channel, who's going to be talking to me a bit about OCD and mainly covering all your questions and answers in relation to, we'll be answering your questions in relation to OCD. So I'll just wait for him to join and then we'll be getting started. Anything you want to know about OCD in relation to false memories, real event OCD, HOCD, ROCD, all these names that we use to help describe it. Of course, they're just thoughts, but these are the names that we give to those to sort of help understand it a bit. We could just say relationship thoughts, but I think those terms are used quite commonly in the OCD community. And unlike the term pure OCD, it's not exactly causing too much trouble. Whereas pure OCD, on the other hand, isn't so helpful because it sort of implies this sort of more concentrated form of OCD, this harder, sort of more difficult, sort of unlucky me scenario of why did I have to have this, not just normal OCD, which it isn't, it's just OCD. So I'm going to be joined now, and let's just wait for him to join. Hopefully this works out fine. Just waiting for Nick to join. You're there.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good. How have you been doing your 50 tips for anxiety video that
It was almost
just
an
about
hour
to
long.
send to me and I'm going to post?
It was almost an hour long. It was good.
This will be something that people need because, as I was saying in the video earlier, we're trying to cover anxiety in general as well, not just OCD. So it's good to have a video like that. And I know it's a long one, but it's helpful. I mean, people often message me to say, Rob, what tips and tricks have you got for OCD? And we're like, well, tips and tricks isn't the way to go, but having a good idea of pointers for anxiety is good, but not sort of quick fixes, so to speak.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people think that because there's so much social media content about just snapping out of anxiety in general, it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way for the general population either. It's not just us. You know, people go about their whole entire lives very stressed over things that their beliefs are really heightening up that response. It's not just us. It's most people, the way anxiety is looked at. It's looked at as, what can I do to get rid of it right now? How can I make it go away? And whether you're a sufferer or not, that's not actually how you get better.
It's human life. That's why I say it's skills for life. It's not just OCD. You're learning to deal with discomfort in general and whatever life throws at you.
Yes, because that's the number one thing I think people, when I talk to people in the community, they say, well, panic attacks is a great one. What do I do when I'm having a panic attack? And when I explain to them nothing, they're like, no, I have to do something. I'm like, but you don't. Because the more you convince yourself you have to do something in a panic attack, the more you are telling yourselves you can't stand it. I can't stand it. I have to snap a rubber band. I have to go into the bathroom and count to 10. And, you know, now where I am now in my recovery journey, I don't even think that's beneficial for the non-sufferers, because whether you have a disorder or not, you're still telling yourself you can't handle a sensation. It just happens.
Absolutely. With the panic attacks, the catalyst is I've got to get out of this fear of doom sensation. I've got to run. Whereas you need to step into the eye of the storm and be like, bring it on. But that's a sort of internal feeling that you get used to, so you can do that. You can't just sort of lie to it and go, okay, bring it on, and grind your teeth like that. He knows that because it's inside you, you know?
Exactly. And that's why Ellis does such a good job. Remember how he explained you attach an irrational belief to a rational belief. So you say to yourself, you'll say, well, I can stand this sensation, but I really can't. You know, you tell yourself, but you actually don't. So when I would go places, I would have to think, this is going to be really tough, but I can do it. And over time, you build that frustration tolerance like a muscle. You're building it like a muscle. It's just, humans were so innately designed for now, especially now, for comfort, instant gratification. But that's not how we get better. It just isn't how we
100%.
get better.
100%. With OCD, the instant I want rid is the main catalyst. But it's understandable because it feels like shit a lot of the time, so you want to get out of it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be lying to yourself if you said you enjoyed the way you were feeling. Thank you.
And
Erica,
OCD takes orders from beliefs, not from thoughts. You can't kid it. You can't lie. You can't. People often say to me, but I'm telling myself I accept it. I'm telling myself all day long I accept it, but you don't accept it. Then your brain knows that.
no, I would say it took me the better part of a year to really feel that with somatic OCD. I would tell myself, I accept it. I accept the possibility of noticing my sensation, but I didn't. I just didn't. And then over time, I started to realize that not noticing the sensation was the problem. It's not about not noticing anxiety, right? Because as I always tell people, if I told you right now, if I told everyone in here, you are going to be anxious for the next 90 days, and then you would never be anxious again, ever. You knew for sure. You would go, oh, okay, sure, go ahead. But it's the uncertainty that kills people because they need to, we feel like we need to know. We need it to be gone in order to get better, but we don't. We don't need it to be gone.
Looking at your picture on the bottom of the screen and me, it looks like a before and after of a haircut, you know? I can see what it will look like if I have a haircut, you know? Maybe not as nice though.
But it's there's some serious truth to that because I spent so much time, and I'm sure you did too, I spent so much time, how can I get rid of this feeling?
Well, I remember when you first came in, Nick, the first session. I mean, it was, first you think, how am I ever gonna improve from this situation? That's the first thing. And then not only that, do you think like, I can't stand it even a day. Like if I don't notice a result in a day, I'm not going to notice it. And that's where so much like a misinterpretation comes from with those things. If it hasn't gone, I'm not better. If it's not, if it this, and then, or I'm doing it wrong, or that doesn't sound right. And that suddenly you get that catalyst of misunderstanding, you know?
Yes, and that's why when I did the video I did the other day about the 10 points.
But carry on with what you were saying. Go on, sorry.
Well, I was going to say what you just said. It's really important because the analogy about a gardener, you don't take the seeds and plant them and then walk outside the next day and look at the soil and say, why are you not flowers? Grow now. We just do that with anxiety.
That's what's good about the Facebook group in the sense that you see other people going through the same journey as you. So you see, oh, they're struggling here. They're taking a long time to read the book. It's going to take a while to understand that. You can see that, right? And that's the same as like loads of sections. Like you can see it's not instant. It's like all the hard work an athlete does in the gym.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you don't, unfortunately, when people ask, why does it keep doing this? Why do my themes switch? Why does it make it feel as real as it can? If it didn't do that, you wouldn't need to do what you do. And I wouldn't need to make videos because I would tell people, let it play in the background and you'll recover in 30 days. But it just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Some mild cases, probably. You've probably seen some. But for someone like me, no way.
That's the battle that I often have, and like it is the situation of explaining when someone's like so adamant thoughts are thoughts is the answer, and like I'm saying, like no, you don't realize it doesn't. Like the number of people we've worked with over the years is a lot of people, and so we see all the different situations. When someone comes into me, they're not coming into me because they've been to one therapist, two therapists. They're coming into me because they've usually tried everything. They've researched for a long time all the work that we do and gone, I can see exactly why I'm still stuck, but I just need some help with understanding a bit more about acceptance, or anxiety skill set, understanding of OCD, those type of things to help that. But initially, it's like, oh, it's so easy to think, oh, it's just thoughts are thoughts. And it blows my mind that today, 10 to 12 years since when I started with OCD, that people still say that. And it's so common in the OCD community to hear, no, it's just thoughts are thoughts. And it's so patronizing to people because it's like, it obviously isn't. Look at how many people are stuck.
Exactly. It's like, what's the most famous reassurance thing we always see, right? Just because you have a thought doesn't mean you're a bad person. That just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. When you're convinced that you're going to harm your 2-year-old child, that feels like you're going to harm them, immediate, imminent danger every second of the day. You're like, oh, and then you say, right? Oh, I've been trying to leave it there. I know I'm a good person. I wouldn't do that. I'm a good person. But what if you did? What if you did? And this is why acceptance is so important, because when you develop unconditional acceptance, unconditional other acceptance, by far, I've made the most progress on. I'm at a point in my life where I can listen to a conversation by someone.
With the help of myself and your wife, Erica, having to sort of glue you to a chair and telling you, maybe you should try and accept this instead of trying to scream the house down.
Exactly. And it's super important because, when people ask me, well, why do you think beliefs can be so detrimental? With the unconditional other acceptance, there's a great thing I've been saying recently. If I went to every gang member in prison for murder and I asked them, why did you do this? It would be, I needed to prove my respect, conditional self-acceptance. I needed to prove to them why I'm better. These beliefs that get people into serious trouble.
The core
Beliefs are very conditional, very, very conditional. And there's plenty of people, like, let me give you an example that many of us do, probably people in here listening. As OCD sufferers, we're very quick to act. Immediate change, right? Nope, gone. I would read a book and I would be 10 pages in and go, nope, I didn't like what they said. Shut the book and throw it away.
And the same with politics and the same with documentaries. If you want to really face discomfort, find the politician you dislike the most and start watching their podcast or watching them being interviewed on a podcast or something and be like, no, I don't even want to hear it. Pick the polar opposite to what you follow.
And again, because as we talk about, agreement doesn't mean acceptance. That's one of the most foundational parts of acceptance. I was reading a book the other day where they were talking about you cannot allow one negative thought in your mind. Because it's cancer.
You see that stuff. A guy that often gets quoted, Joe Dispenza. People often say to me, oh, Rob, what do you think of Joe Dispenza? And I think, yeah, I like a lot of the stuff that him and others in similar realm there speak about. But for OCD, saying things like one negative thought is going to affect your sort of biology and all your life in lots of different ways. However, I don't know the exact way to quote them, but it's more or less along those lines. That is the ultimate catalyst for OCD. If you're trying to eliminate negative thoughts to make yourself this like perfectly pure person, this idea of pure and good and all this stuff, that is OCD red rag to a bull every moment of the day.
Absolutely. And I've watched a lot of Joe's stuff. And
have you? You haven't been reading the books? That's interesting. Now we catch you out. Now we find out when we come on Instagram Live.
Well, I read the books and watch videos, but I think there's no better way, because I think it's difficult. It was difficult for me, which I'm not there yet, to develop unconditional self-acceptance. But
it's not easy for anyone to get unconditional self-acceptance because it's the polar opposite of society's whole structure.
Yes. Everything, when you go on to social media, and again, this isn't meaning that posting pictures of yourself is inherently bad, but you can tell very easily by the lighting and the filters and always facing the same angle on the camera that social media is a very conditional place. Like a very...
Well, look, I'll give you an example. When I finish this Instagram Live with you now, it's going to give me an option to use the thumbnail from this video to be the picture for the video. Now, to get that picture, you've got to scroll the bar along to get a shape, to get a picture that looks decent. Otherwise, it's going to have us like this because we'll be speaking, right? So when you're doing that for the first few seconds, thinking, okay, I've got to find, and this is what humans will think, and this is what I think. When I do it, and I'm doing a live with you, I think, okay, let's find a picture where I don't look too bad, and let's find a picture where Nick also looks equally okay. Otherwise, he's going to message me and say, Rob, why do you pick a picture where you look so good and I look horrendous? And so basically, then what's going to happen is when you go along that and you do that, if you do that for longer than a minute, you're like, oh God, I've got to get this right. So I just post it, whatever anyone says, whatever happens, right? After I've obviously picked one that looks good to me and them looking crap. But the point of this is, if you're doing that as a selfie sort of day-to-day life, I see people in restaurants, hundreds of selfies, you know? And then I think, oh my God, how tiring. Or the concert, so many photos. It's like, are you in the moment or are you doing that? And that's very much what we were saying there about this sort of conditional, I need to be accepted. I need to get this just right. Just right OCD is also in there too.
Absolutely. I think the best analogy or metaphor I ever came up with what I told you, it's like going to the carnival and you hit the game with the hammer and you got to hit the you slam the hammer down and try to hit the bell. Well, conditional acceptance is you're always trying to hit the bell, but you never reach it. You never reach it. And it's just this drug that needs to be replenished over and over and over again. And you see it with quotes, people trying to find the right caption, everything like you just said. And I remember when you told me, you asked me if you remember, you said, your regular Instagram account, what do you use it for? I was like, I don't really know. And you were like, you don't
sending me dog pictures. That's not a joke. Think about how many get sent to WhatsApp
so
group.
you were like, you don't need that like you think you do. And I'm like, no, but I like making people laugh and I need to post pictures of like where I am. But you don't. It's not that it's inherently bad, but you don't need to do that. And I realized very quickly, like even hiking now, I don't even take my phone out to take pictures unless I'm sending it to you. It's like the Ram the other day, because I'm not really present. I'm just taking the same photo over and over and over again.
Yeah, and we don't realize it until you're out. Like I had to go out for a meeting this afternoon, I was out, and then I had lunch afterwards. And then when you've not got the phone and you're doing that, you think, oh my God, I've been so engaged in different things. Now, you're not going to be like that all the time. We're living in a world that's now technology based, and I'm very pro that for lots of good reasons and negative that for other reasons. But when you're looking at these things, it's like that now moment. And you can't become obsessed with the now as well. People read an Eckhart Tolle book, Power Now, they go, I've got to bloody live in the now all the time. You're not going to be able to do that in this world, because you're going to have to think about saying the future, and you're going to have to make a decision based on the past. Unless you're literally just sitting next to a tree with no responsibility at all, maybe then you can, but we ain't living like that most of the time.
No, and this is why, like Eckhart Tolle and mindfulness, I've had to kind of step away from my bias. I still do think mindfulness, the primary approach for somatic OCD is not good. I think it's very bad. But I was
just to clarify what you're saying there is that mindfulness in of itself for OCD and anxiety is very helpful in creating a distance between thoughts, can be very helpful. But for some people where they're very caught up, especially sensory motor, where it's very internally focused and they're very sort of locked internally inwards, they want to be connecting outwards, social environment, all that kind of stuff. But with you, when you're doing that, if you're trying to then mindfulness and doing that, and then be mindful and aware of the body and sort of just what you're feeling and the sensations and leaving thoughts to just pass, it takes you more in, then you panic more, and then you can't get rid of it, and you feel it's not working, and boom, 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 it all adds up, you know?
Yeah, because it becomes almost like an avoidance compulsion. You say to yourself, oh, I need to be present. Like, I need to be present. And you hear people say, the present is all that matters. And one of my favorite quotes ever was from 20 years ago. It's a very old interview by Jeff Bezos. And he said very calmly, some people focus on the now their whole life and they're very happy. I focus on the now and the future, and it works very well for me.
Yeah, I mean, because look, if I said to you, if I said to you, we're going to spend the day being present all day and do some things, you would have a very nice experience. But then if I got you sort of healthily engaged with a future project, that pulls you into the now in terms of that almost like hypnotic now-like state when you're busily preoccupied with the task at hand, but there's a future focus. So it's a combo, you know? It's like people would say, oh, if I retired, I'd go to the beach, I'd just drink nice cocktails and I'd lie down. It's like, but would you? Because it's not going to be the same as your 1 week holiday to Mexico. It's going to be Mexico 365. So then you're going to get bored because there's no ultimate comparison. The same as when you've been working so hard at work, you just get away for holiday, first day, bang, it feels amazing. 15th day, not the same. It's that balance that you need the opposite, the same as life, death. You know, if you live for 10,000 years, and look, and I'm for all future increasing human life expectancy, absolutely. But I'm saying that 10,000 years, this number of years, it's a different perception of things. I'm sure that with that example, there's other things that we could do that would still make life amazing. But I'm saying that it's appreciating that something comes to an end, like the roller coaster 1,000 times.
Absolutely. And I was reading a great study once where they were talking about getting a car. You and me might have talked about this. It's, you know, when you get a car, the first day you're excited, but in 1 year from now, that feeling's not the same. So
they say that about cars and boats. The most exciting thing about them is the day you buy them and the day you sell them.
Sell them. Yes. Yeah. Especially a boat. But it's just, it's absolutely true. And what I try and tell people, because as you and me both know, I get asked a lot. I'm sure you've been asked a million times, you know, how beneficial is mindfulness? I say the present moment is important, but just don't try to force it. Because if you force it, it becomes, you're looking for a feeling and I need this feeling now. It's just,
yeah, like mindfulness helps me in, if I'm dealing with a stressful scenario, I can think, right, think of myself now sitting here, just the human skeleton in the chair. What am I smelling? What are my senses? I feel myself more grounded, like it just instantly becomes more grounded. Okay. But if it's a fear that I'm utterly terrified of, that doesn't bring that reaction down. When I was terrified of spiders, if you'd put a tarantula in my hand whilst doing mindfulness, trust me, that wouldn't have been a very relaxed position. Do you know what I mean? Because
no.
The impact was like cutting through it like a hot knife through butter. That's sort of how it goes.
And I wanna, for everyone listening, because this is something, you know, about the changing of themes and why it's important to, as I always tell people, it's important to understand how OCD works. It's not important to understand how the prefrontal cortex works, the thalamus. We don't need to know that. We have to
so many books on that, cover that for ages, and people think, oh, that's so great to hear about what the amygdala does. You don't need to know that.
No.
It writes well in a nice book. Oh, they've mentioned the amygdala. Oh, they've mentioned the frontal cortex. They've mentioned about dopamine and stuff like that in the brain. People think, oh, wow, that makes it all. No, because unless they're providing the actual cure to the molecular reason that there's OCD there, that ain't makes much difference. All right, like a kind of snap in the brain where there's a signal, it's like a faulty smoke alarm. Yes, but that's brief. Doesn't need more than that.
No, you know? Exactly. And when I tell people, well, what's the difference? They ask me, I've had someone ask me that. I say, well, on your journey to recovery, you're more than likely going to have many different things thrown at you. The chances of it being one thing is rare. What I've seen, people I've talked to. So like I was in the car.
Yeah, that's true. But with yourself, you are actually one of those cases where it was on one thing more than others. Say, for example, me, hundreds of themes, latched, moving.
Yeah.
With you, predominantly sensory motor based.
Yes, absolutely. Sensory motor based and then conditional acceptance of myself. Those are really only the two things. So I am fortunate. But, you know, I was driving on a one-way road going to Breckenridge in June, and the whole 3 hours, this was new, I had an intense fear that I was going to be hit in a car accident head on. And I'd never had that before, but I didn't engage, and I let myself, I was very panicked for 2 hours. And I was thinking,
yeah, if you don't know those things, what they are, it's very scary. Like a guy was telling me the other day, a friend of mine, I hadn't spoken to for a while, and he was like, Rob, you know, I heard you're doing this OCD, where people don't understand what OCD is. So they're like, oh, I heard you're doing this OCD thing. And like, I just wanted to say, you know, I had a terrible panic attack. I was in Italy, I was coming across this bridge, and I thought I was literally going to die. And like, I thought, yeah, because you've probably never spoken about that. Now, if you don't understand that, it's very scary. The same if you stood on a cliff edge and think you're about to jump, but you didn't know what OCD and anxiety was, you'd think, bloody hell, what if I do jump? You know?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of the ways that OCD will try and grab your attention, because as we know, it just tries to really keep you safe. And OCD is not this evil thing out to get you. Yes, the disorder itself can be cruel, but it's not a living creature that's maliciously trying
Yeah,
to
I often use it as a sort of like a kind of little creature thing as a description, because it sort of helps to understand what it's like. But yeah, it's not a thing trying to hurt you. It's just like a kind of it's designed to save your life. It's trying to help you.
It's trying to help you. It's just a heightened response in the brain. And I was hiking with a buddy the other day who's a neuro guy, actually, and he was telling me all about the neuro stuff with this PTSD, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And in my mind, as he was telling me that, I was like, yeah, but the only thing that really matters is identifying the core fear and bringing it down. Because you could tell me all about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, but if you understand that, but you're not willing to address the irrational belief, you could be a triple doctor and it's not going to move it. Because what again, as you and me both know,
you don't need to spend the neuroscientist who's spent his whole life studying OCD on a molecular level is not gonna have the information for recovery. He'll understand it on a molecular level. Now, I saw that firsthand working with a lot of those. There's lots of people that have come in over the years, professors at top universities in the world with OCD, neuroscientists with OCD, everything you can imagine over the years, speaking, working with them, coaching them, and their knowledge is fantastic for me to hear, for me to have, because obviously OCD is my sort of life's work, everything I'm doing. So to hear about it on a molecular level, I enjoy that. It's exciting for me. But is that going to help if I was trying to recover? No, not at all.
No,
yeah? But it's interesting.
It is, and it's the same thing. And people get really bent out of shape about OCD like that because we have a disorder. It's very easy to doubt, but it's the same thing with business. You can have a teacher who teaches business who's never opened a business, or you can have someone like my cousin who dropped out.
No, but what you can do is you will doubt that you even have OCD. So as you were saying there, you'll doubt you'll even have it. So any molecular explanation of it makes no difference if the disorder can doubt itself, right?
Yeah, it's a great point.
It makes no difference because, look, things aren't, if you're trying to understand the brain by looking at the brain, but you're trying to understand it on a level for your general usage of the brain yourself, that's very different to this jelly-like substance brain and then our conscious perception. I mean, if you saw a brain there and a stone and you didn't know what they were, you'd think that they might be sort of just similar objects, but one presents this whole like computer-like projection, right? So therefore, if you're in it, you want to know how to operate with OCD. You're not interested too much on what it looks like on a sort of molecular level. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what's so key. You want to be learning the things that help you, the life skills, the bringing down anxiety. Some of these medical websites that you see for OCD, thousands of in detail, every description about it. That's completely compulsive for someone with OCD because they're learning more and more and more and more. And so a simple book like Paul David's, which we all love, you're thinking, right, this is for the reader. This is a great book in terms of anxiety. Great anxiety skills from a guy who had very bad general anxiety disorder for most of his life. Amazing book, yeah? Whereas another book that's super technical on OCD, that won't be necessarily as helpful as the other.
No, and it's really funny you say that because in my field, we always joke as providers because, you know, we get, as a provider, we get so much research in school, and it really comes down to one thing. Patients don't care. They want to know how to get better. And that's just the truth. And it's cool for the PhDs who are the researchers together, but all you really, again, as you and me both know, the recovery journey is really a lot of ups and downs. We know that. But what's required to get better is a simple list: unconditional acceptance, uncertainty, exposures when needed, time and patience, and persistency. Those things, right? And a general knowledge of how
For life,
it works.
not just OCD, for life.
For life. Because
Absolutely. You're spot on, yeah.
I'm pretty much convinced, and I'm pretty sure Erica can say this, we all have different things we worry about in life where we have to work on our beliefs. When it comes to like money and stuff like that, I'm at a place where I can accept anything. It's just, now, again, remember, as we know, acceptance doesn't mean this, right? Because people say, well, I can just accept being poor, so why not strive for anything? That's not true. That's a false misconception about acceptance. You can still strive for things, but it's accepting if you don't reach those things. That is so important with recovery, because in the beginning of recovery,
acceptance is an agreement, like Kirsty's video.
It's a great video. You know,
yeah, but that's a trade-off there, because you could have a guy who reads a lot about sort of acceptance Buddhism, and he thinks, hey, I want to slow down a lot. I want to just go along and accept and just be at peace more with a lot less. But he might actually really want to strive to do more, but he just had a bit of a sort of breakdown, and he actually would be better at becoming more peaceful with acceptance, but still striving. But sometimes all these areas can easily be misinterpreted. Hence why it's so important to have all these discussions, Facebook groups, all the things, so you can think things. As same as when you talk to your partner, you talk to your wife, you'll say, oh, what do you think if we do this? What do you think if we do that? And then they give you a counter argument, then they weigh things up. And that's what you're getting from that reflection, from another angle, from somebody who's looking at you and observing you from the outside, right?
Absolutely. And then the other thing that happens too, like Jade said in her recent video,
that easy read book there is Paul David, At Last a Life. It's on our reading list. If you go on the OCDrecovery.com website, you will see it on there.
Great book. But as Jade said, you know, like you said, OCD in itself, sure, but we're all going to have adversities in our life. Relationships, work, death of parents, maybe a loss of any loved one, friends passing. And these philosophies help so much, because as you and me both know, there was a New York Times bestseller, the opening page of her book, very well known, it said, there's nothing badass about being a stoic. And they went on to explain that stoicism means no emotion. That's not true.
Well, there's a constant misrepresentation of it that, like, I mean, I used to have this debate all the time and still do. People say, oh, yeah, but if you become more stoic or more rational, you're going to lose all your feelings. Absolutely not. I still laugh, happy, more compassionate than ever, because I can have that connection through all of that. So it turns down the exaggerated negative, where it's so, something feels so catastrophic, terrible, awful. But that constantly gets misinterpreted, because, oh no, that you can't say that, because that means that then I won't have anything. How could you ever accept someone like that? No, it doesn't mean the person's, we like what they're doing. We're saying that they're a human being and they're fallible and they can make mistakes. Oh no, and it's the same. That sort of rigidity is still there in the therapy community, in the coaching community. It's still there, that rigidity, because when you learn to see it rationally, you can see where people do. If you've got a really angry therapist, they're being irrational. They are irrational. There's irrational beliefs. If they weren't, they would be, oh, okay, I don't like this, I dislike that. And they would still feel firm about it, but they wouldn't be sort of blowing their top.
Absolutely. And to believe you're going to go throughout life without coming across people like that, I mean, it's going to happen regardless of what you do in life. You're going to have people, you know, whether you're trying to create a new business model and say sales, your competitors might try to tear you down. But if you direct all of your belief system at trying to prove that person wrong, it's a smoke and mirror thing. Like, all we have for recovery, in my opinion, is we have the belief that we're afraid of, the belief that we have. We are probably very bad with discomfort, so we have to learn how to get better at discomfort. We have to learn how to build our lifestyle habits so they're balanced, right? I talked about this in the video today. One of the 50 points was this. You hear this all the time. And again, I have to say, if you struggle severely with alcohol, that's not what I'm talking about. But you can never drink again. You could have no caffeine, or you're going to relapse. Those type of black and white lifestyle habits get people into trouble. But
Yeah, you're not talking about in the realm of addiction. You're talking about when people with anxiety, often you hear like, cut out all coffee, cut out all alcohol.
Yes.
And that actually becomes the opposite and becomes detrimental in the sense that people who've got a fear of uncertainty need to still be having a drink or having 2 or 3 drinks and experiencing, hey, something bad could happen. That's the important part. Otherwise, they're like, right, no sex, no alcohol, no caffeine. And then it's like, yeah, but everyone says no caffeine. No. You can look at Kirsty, for example, when she came to me a couple of years back, 3.5 years back, she said to me, she was like, no coffee, no way, it makes me too bad. Within a week, she was having like 2 or 3 coffees in a day, and she didn't care because she got so used to being told like, no way, that's so bad for you. And it's actually about adjusting to life realistically. We don't need this whole complete comfort trap life where it's like, got to be super safe, got to make sure everything's like this for anxiety, because that becomes the problem. Okay, of course we have to be balanced. We're not going out there and having 10 drinks, but which we all have done, but I'm saying you're trying to balance it in the sense of that if you're trying to eliminate everything for control and certainty, it does the opposite.
And this is how people, because we've both been asked this, right? People say, well, how can beliefs be the determining factor for everything? I go, here's a great example. 40 years ago, 30 years ago, you used to be able to smoke cigarettes on planes in a doctor's office. The act
you still can, but you get kicked off. You still can. You can still do it if you want it, but not gonna be so good.
It might be so good. But it's the truth. It just goes to show you that society goes through phases of beliefs, and the action itself is the same. So when you look at, and this isn't the entire recovery journey as we know, but as you and me both know, you and I both love thinking about perspective. Mm-hmm. So, people say something like this to me, right? This is a crazy one. How could anyone ever accept murder? Easy. Go to a cannibal tribe 1,000 years ago. The act was the same.
Just go to a war zone for any country. I mean, because government has got a monopoly on war, so that's their main thing they've got. So they're saying it's okay to kill in this situation. If an alien was in a little spaceship over Earth, a man killing someone for a murder in the street versus troops killing in a village, the alien wouldn't be able to tell any difference. Only when he spoke to humans and the humans said, oh no, this one is not allowed, this one is allowed. So we can see how rational, how thinking and perspectives alter. That's a key part of me learning to see how our perspectives is why we think certain things and feel certain things.
And we really don't realize, because we get sucked into OCD, we get sucked into daily life. None of us on this video really realize how good we have it. Well, I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, there's going to be people watching these videos from a country where there's like very limited resources for anything to do with OCD, and that's why we try and do as much free content as we can. And I think we're one of the largest providers of free content in a sense of the Facebook groups, the YouTube channels, all the translated channels that we've done in Hindi, Urdu, Russian, Chinese, all being developed at the moment, and some of them already started. But my point's this: I don't want to say that everyone's got it good. Some of those people in those countries do not have it good for OCD. But then if you were to compare it to somebody else, I mean, people come in with OCD who are like paralyzed down a part of their body, and they've got OCD, and they're in poverty. And you think, Jesus, that is really hard. So you've got to use that comparison stuff. It's not sort of like reductionist, taking away your feelings. It's helping to change perspective, because that's another place where it gets misinterpreted. Oh, you're saying this, but that means then my situation means nothing. No, it's helping you to see a different perspective to bring down that negative sensation.
What did we say? Look what I got right next to me for you. I was thinking about you. This is right next to me.
Momin's looking for attention in the comments. Nick, you're my best friend. We'll ignore him for now.
Look.
Saving Private Ryan, one of my favorite films for perspective. Really is. The opening scene for Saving Private Ryan is Mosquito just tried to get me in the middle of an Instagram live. The thing with Saving Private Ryan, that opening scene just instantly bang, changes your perspective straight away. You're like, oh my God, how unbelievably horrendous would that be? It just quickly creates a shift, you know?
I mean, and no decision. There's no like, you were drafted, you went to prison if you avoided, you're a traitor, so you have to go. Imagine that you're on that boat at 18 years old and you think to yourself, I'm going to die. There's a 99% chance I'm dying when this gate goes down. But they still did it anyway. And people, like I said, people always are like, oh, you're using that to like make yourself feel better. It's not. You're looking at the perspective of the gratitude shift to be able to think about.
Just coming out of that boat, the front bit drops down, there's a machine gun fire, everyone's shot in front of you. Just to think that you're signed up to that, doesn't matter if you're anxious, you've got PTSD, you've got a baby on the way, dead. And it's like, that's not a few people, that's loads. And then when you start thinking of that, you're like, yes, that is a lot worse than how today's been, you know?
1% of the entire population of Earth, not your country or mine, 1 living percent of the country of the world died in World War II. 70 million people. Million. I mean,
crazy. And then the Spanish flu as well, horrendous after.
Oh, horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, so when, you know, those are things, and you don't want to do it compulsively. You don't want to walk around all day because it can become compulsive. But whenever I'm feeling bad, or I was feeling really bad, like hiking, right? I would get to the base of a mountain. I would think, I can't do this today. I would think, do you know how many people would love in the hospital right now?
That's always the best one. I always think that one in relation to, like, when I'm thinking, oh, something's difficult or something's challenging, I'm thinking, how many other people would, like, I always say to OCD sufferers, even when you're on your worst day, there's a queue down the road of so many people that would take your position right now. What? Even with OCD? Yes.
Yes. My dad had no choice. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is a brutal cancer. He died a tough death. He had no choice. There was no choice. You're going to be dead in 3 to 6 months. It's on your liver. It's everywhere. When those people are on their deathbed, that was the first time I was ever in hospice. Those people would give anything to have one more day.
Yeah, when you go in those places, it always makes you feel like that. I've only been in a couple of times and both horrible, obviously.
It's brutal. It's totally brutal. But listen, Rob, I got to run because I got stuff to do, but it was a pleasure as always.
Yes, very good. Very, very good to have you on here. What I want to do next time with you is to do a lot of questions and answers, because we're meaning to cover all of those and cover all the different things about OCD, any questions you guys have in relation to anything. Should we just answer that one question?
Yeah.
Guys, do you have any advice on losing things with OCD? Anytime I lose something, I can't get it out of my mind for days. Well, that's where most of my OCD started.
So I would say, I mean, whether it's, you know, when it comes to misplacing anything, there's usually a fear, you know, what if I don't remember where it is? What if I never remember where it is? And you believe that you must find it, but you don't need to actually find it. People lose things all the time.
Usually before holidays, have I got my passport in the normal gen pop situation? But when it's you going to anywhere or like an important thing, it's like, have I done this? Have I forgotten this? It's something that's going to impact your future position.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to look at it. But yeah, Rob, it was a pleasure. I'll see you soon. Next time we'll do questions and answers.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks very much, Nick. See you soon.
Later, guys. See ya.
Bye.